Hey, how you doing, econ students? This is Jacob Clifford. I'm so excited about working with you guys. This is going to be awesome. We're talking about case studies, which is the practical application of economics. Do me a favor right now in the chat. First thing, as always, give this video a like and say, yeah, I like this video. And let me know in the chat how I'm doing with the audio. Make sure the audio is working. So let me know really quickly. Thank you so much for joining me today on this Friday. I hope that you and your family are safe. Again, thank you so much for joining me to learn economics, because that's what we're going to do today. If you didn't do so, you need to go get the worksheet that's going to go along with this. I also gave you the article I'm going to refer to. You don't necessarily need to download this whole thing out, but it would be nice if you have it in front of you. I'll be reading and talking about that. We're talking about macroeconomics and case studies. I'm giving you a scenario. You're going to answer some questions. The first one is about kind of the economy right now, and the second one is more about unemployment and things you might actually see in your class, might get you ready for a test. And understand just how unemployment works. Like, how does this whole thing work? Anyways, I'm going to go see how you guys are doing in the chat. It sounds like I'm doing great. Someone said jump scare. That's funny. Sorry, I didn't mean to do it that way. Okay, first thing, here's what we got to do. Like I said, the one good thing, and there's not much good things happening right now with COVID-19, but the one good thing, the only silver lining that I could possibly think of, is that now is the time where you're actually applying and seeing the application of economics in your, everything you're learning in your class is happening like right now. Like when you learn about fiscal policy and monetary policy and GDP and consumer spending and all these concepts, they're all happening right now. And that's about the only good thing, because everything else is trash. Everything else is a dumpster fire. So obviously from this little quick cartoon, yeah, I'm feeling sick. I don't want to make fun of the actual people who are really sick, but the economy is sick as well. And this situation we're in, the question we'll look at later on, was it avoidable? What could we have done different? And that's the only downside. That's one of the downsides of economics, is it's a social science, right? It's not like a complete perfect science. We'll have to look back and say, okay, how do we do things differently next time around? So let me show you another quick video or image. All right, we killed the coronavirus. Have we killed the coronavirus yet? So, right now there's a lot of conversation, at least in the United States, about opening the economy back up and what would that look like? Is that going to cause more deaths? I was listening to a podcast yesterday that was talking about specifically about car deaths, and he was saying, any given year in the United States, there's a certain number of car deaths, but we still, driving accidents, and we still allow driving, even though there's this huge astronomical number of people who die in car accidents. And he pointed out, like, this is similar. Like, we have to weigh a benefit and a cost for this. And that is a conversation to have later on. It could be a political question too on an election year. That's not what I'm going to jump in today. Instead, I'm going to be doing something completely different today. We're going to do a case study. So right now, get that worksheet up and running. Really quick plug here. If you're a teacher, email me if you want to use any of my case studies in your class. Please don't use this one in your class in future years. But if you're a teacher and you're interested in you like these things, I got another 50 of these case study things. Email me. I'll gladly help you out. I have other teacher resources too, so you can see that. I also have something called Ultimate Review Packet if you're in college, or if you are an AP student. This Ultimate Review Pack is totally going to help you learn. If you're just someone who likes economics, that's awesome too. This would be a great way to say, hey, thanks so much for making these videos to help me out. All right, that said, let's jump in to the case study. I'm excited about this one. We're talking about macroeconomics. Doing the first one. Here's what we're going to do. I think this helps personally. If you ask me, I think it helps me, because it becomes more of a conversation. I want to do a quick Zoom. That's right. It's right here. There is the Zoom number. Right now, get on Zoom, and I want to be able to ask you questions so we can, basically, I want to hear your input and your ideas as we're going through this. So right now, get on Zoom, and I'll ask you some questions as we go through this. I won't be able to see you on the screen. I might change it up and show you guys if you're interested. But for right now, I want to be able to hear you and ask questions. One favor though, on this Zoom, please turn off my audio. So turn off my audio on the YouTube channel when you're on Zoom with me, so we don't hear the two sounds of that. Or make sure you're wearing headphones or something. Okay, so that said, all right, let's get up and running here. The Zoom meeting is going. It looks like you guys are starting to come in, and I will add you as you do. I'll give you a second here. As you're doing that, let me let me talk more about this idea. The article that we're going to read and analyze is written by an economist named, it's right here, it's Joseph Stiglitz. He's more of a left-leaning economist, so I'm not trying to make any political statements here. He did win a Nobel Prize, which is this is not just some random person I picked. This is a well-known economist. You are going to see a little bit of, though, a little bit of some bias in the things he's talking about. And so we'll talk about that. We'll identify some of that bias and recognize some of that bias. For the people who are jumping in, I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you so much. I'm adding people in as people come in. So keep joining me here. This is awesome, you guys. I really do appreciate all you jumping in. Last time we had some teachers that were jumping in, which is pretty cool. Again, if you want to, as people are jumping in here, I know I'm stalling a little bit. If you want to start reading that article I gave you, you can start kind of reading over. That would be awesome. I'm not going to be able to add everybody in here because I have to get back into my regular site in a few minutes. So it's so glad that you guys are here. We got a good amount of people coming in. Okay. All right. So I think what I'm going to do is, if you're not in yet, don't feel bad. I'm not trying to kick you out or get rid of you. If you're not in yet, that's okay. But I'm going to go ahead and move on and start asking questions to the people that are here. So we'll just jump straight into it. And, because my screen doesn't show that you're here, like the people who are waiting, it'll take some time for me to add you in there. So please be patient with that if I don't admit you right away. Give me a second on that. All right, all that said, let's jump into this thing. I'm going to unmute all those people. So go ahead and say hi if you'd like to. Hello. So glad you're joining me today. This is going to be awesome. Okay, so we're looking at this article and we're looking at this worksheet that goes along with it. So right now, this is case study number 1, and I'm just going to read it to you. Here we go. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see. All right. So the idea of these case studies is just to give you a scenario to kind of help you, work out your ideas. So the idea here is you're a 19-year-old college student, and due to the global COVID-19 pandemic, you and your family have been quarantined for almost 4 weeks. Your parents think that you and your 12-year-old brother, Tommy, have been playing too many video games and force you to put together a jigsaw puzzle. Sound familiar to anybody? I mean, this is totally what's happening in my family. Tommy knows that you like economics and starts asking you questions about the economy. So remember, this is your 12-year-old brother we're talking about, and he's going to ask you 2 questions. And I want you to respond like you would to a 12-year-old. So first question is, why is COVID-19 pandemic so bad for the economy? Anybody want to jump in?
I would say it's bad because there's a loss of consumer confidence right now.
Okay.
It's causing a decrease in demand.
So consumer confidence is down. What does that mean to, I know exactly what you mean by that. What does that mean to like a 12-year-old? What do you mean by consumer confidence?
Essentially, it's so weird to explain this.
Isn't it though? That's what I'm saying. Economics is so intuitive that explaining it to a 12-year-old might be hard, but go ahead.
So it's essentially, if for a 12-year-old, it would be something like, if you wanted to buy a good, but you feel like buying it isn't safe, you wouldn't buy that good, right? So that's probably how I'll explain it.
There you go. And then the end result of all this, the big thing we're worried about, because a 12-year-old might be like, who cares if people aren't buying things? Maybe people have less trash around their house. What's the big problem here? It's going to cause something. What's going to cause? Anybody jump in?
Businesses stop making money.
Business stop making money, and then what happens right after that? And this is going to affect you. It's going to affect me. It's going to affect every other person. This is going to cause...
Start getting rid of employees.
Yeah, there it is. It's going to cause unemployment. That's kind of what I was... Go ahead.
Increase in cyclical unemployment.
There you go. There's the perfect textbook answer. So consumer confidence is falling, and this is going to cause unemployment. I've got more things I added here on the answer key in case you wanted it. But basically on the answer key, this is what I wrote. right? Since people are afraid of getting sick, they're not going out and buying things. This causes business as individuals to lose money and potentially cause unemployment. And why is that bad? Well, if you're unemployed, then you can't get money. And obviously, we all understand, intuitively, like just anybody who's not in economics class understands if businesses don't have customers, they're not making any money, and that's a problem because I work for that business, right? Now, next question is what's being done to help? Now, don't say, well, fiscal policy, monetary policy. Remember, 12-year-old, what's being done to help the economy? Anybody jump in?
The government is loaning out money to businesses.
Government is giving loans. That's totally true. Anything else?
The Fed slashed down interest rates.
Yeah, for a 12-year-old.
The money you have to pay back is decreasing.
There you go.
When you loan out money.
All right, so the government is giving out loans to businesses, and forgive my handwriting, but it also says the Fed. You have to explain what the Fed is to a 12-year-old, but the central bank is making it easier to borrow money because that's what they're doing. They're lowering interest rates. Now, what you just described is both fiscal and monetary policy, right? The government also, in fact, I should add this in, is the government is giving consumers money. Now, this is a little different, consumers' money. This is a little different this time around than other recessions. This is, we'll talk more about the specific act in a second. In the past, like in 2008, there was the stimulus package that was, a lot of bridges and government spending and government purchases to, get the economy up and running again by getting people jobs, by having the government buy more stuff and spend more stuff. This one, there's some crazier and different things happening. So what I had for the answers for this one was the government is giving people money and bailing out businesses so they don't close, causing more unemployment. Okay, for number 3, let's jump into the actual article. Tommy is surprised to hear that the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act, which is CARES, is the largest stimulus package in history. He asked more questions. And whenever a 12-year-old asks you a bunch of questions, you go, okay, I need more information. You go find a CNN article that's written by Joseph Stiglitz. According to Stiglitz, so that article I gave you guys, it is right here. We'll read and talk about it and analyze it a little bit in a second. But basically, the first question, according to Stiglitz, why shouldn't this be called a stimulus package? So what we're going to do is this. I'm going to go ahead and read this, and when we come across the answer, we'll fill it out, and we'll keep reading, then come across the answer, and we'll fill it out. So I want to point out by saying, like I said in the beginning, that this is an opinion piece. In other words, there is definitely 100% some bias in here, but it's not like bad bias. It's not. That's what I hate is when it's bad bias. This person's horrible. This person's horrible. This party's the worst. This party's the worst. Everybody wants the same thing right now. Everyone just really fundamentally disagrees on how to do it, right? And so the conservatives and liberals, they fight over, okay, what's the best way to achieve the same goals, right? So here we go. I'm going to start off by just reading that intro. Joseph Stiglitz is an American economist and a professor at Columbia. He received the Nobel Prize for Economic Science. His former senior vice president, chief of the world, an economist for the World Bank, and former member of chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors for the Clinton administration. So you can see that he obviously knows what he's talking about. All right, let's jump straight into it. Go ahead and mute yourself. I'm going to unmute you guys, all of you guys, and I'll ask you questions. I'll unmute you in a second. Okay, anyways, back into this. So here we go. The federal bill just passed by impressive response to the economic consequences of coronavirus pandemic. We should not refer to this as a stimulus package. Ooh, there's the first question. Here it comes. He says we should not call this stimulus. Why? That's a misnomer. It's not like 2008 when the economy faced insufficient demand because of problems in the financial sector. Then a stimulus was what was required. Here, the problem is not a lack of demand, but an implosion of the economy because of COVID-19. And so to answer that first question, what's he trying to say? I'll unmute you. So go ahead. What's he trying to say here?
I'd say he's wrong.
Okay.
Because what happened, the COVID-19 actually did create a lack of demand.
It definitely did, no doubt about it. So what he's trying to say is like, I totally agree. It's totally a stimulus package. There's nobody in the world who doesn't call it stimulus. What he's saying is that word is probably not the best word to use in this case, because what's the difference between 2008 and what's happening here?
In 2008, it was affecting the financial sector specifically.
Yes?
That's why it doesn't agree with the word stimulus. Because it believes if it's stimulus, it should be, it's like inserting money to the financial sector specifically. That's why it's a stimulus package.
Back in 2008. Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. Yeah, for sure. No doubt about it. With the TARP program. Anybody else?
2008 were different, drastically different. The economy was much stronger now than it was in 2008.
Okay. And then, so why would this be considered stimulus?
Well, it's because we're trying to keep it going.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. The best analogy is kind of like the car analogy. The difference between like a car that just needs some tweaking and it's running, but it's tweaking, and a car that's broken down. Do you know what I'm saying? So in this situation with such a lack of demand and people not being able to go buy things or go to work, that's definitely causing a complete shutdown. Like the car's not driving. So he's basically trying to say this is bigger than stimulus with this statement. And I do agree, you know, he's kind of splitting hairs here. So basically he's trying to say is what I wrote down here, and I'm not going to, you can see my horrible handwriting. So I'm not going to, always write out all the answers. I put normally a stimulus is when the government is trying to promote more spending. This act is trying to prevent financial ruin for millions of people that have very little or no income. Was kind of what I wrote for that one. So this is bigger. I'm just going to write that. This is bigger because by bigger, I mean like a bigger importance than just regular stimulating the economy. Because why? Because the economy is shut down. Okay, now let's get to the good stuff. Stiglitz suggests that money must get into the right hands quickly. Identify two different groups that will get financial support. How will this help the overall economy? We're looking for two different groups based on these next few paragraphs of who's going to get it. So basically what he's doing in this article is kind of giving you a rundown of what's inside this. And of course, he does add a little bit of his own little views as well. So let's go back to the article. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pink pen, and we come across something that is more of an opinion slash clearly biased. I'll just say that. If there's something biased, we'll mark it. And so, and the reason we're doing this is because this is important when you're reading anything to recognize who is sharing this and why are they sharing it, and are they trying to influence me? Because in most of economics, scarcity, we all agree, right? And we all agree that minimum wage causes some unemployment. Like there's these things that economists all agree to, but then like I said, there's these things that like, well, that's more of opinion. All right, let's go. The first priority is to ensure that we have the right economics to protect health. So he starts off with health is the key. That's why assistance to hospitals and paid sick leave is so important. But beyond that, we need to protect our citizens to prevent the extremes of extreme deprivation and stress that would otherwise arise, and to put our economy on sound footing for a recovery once the pandemic is under control. What the U.S. economy needs is for the money to get in the right hands quickly to keep workers linked to their employers. I'm going to put you muted for a second. Okay. So let's keep going. In that respect, the bill sought to strengthen the U.S. unemployment insurance system, which is among the weakest in advanced countries, both in terms of coverage, the fraction of workers entitled to the benefits, and replacement rates, which is benefits as a ratio of normal pay. If forecasts are correct, so a little bit of this is a little bit, weakest. That gives you an idea. I mean, it is true. And if you didn't know this, the United States has very weak unemployment benefits compared to especially countries in Europe. But let's keep reading. He says, if forecasts are correct, the burden of unemployment insurance system will be enormous. In other words, these people who are about to lose their job are going to go to the government, ask for unemployment benefits, and that's going to be a large group of people. All right, the 3.3 million workers who registered for unemployment benefits last week increased the number of unemployed Americans by 50% from the 5.8 million from February. In other words, we've already seen a 50% increase in the number of people who have applied to be unemployed. But then he says that latest number is likely low because some couldn't get through the unemployment offices to register. Some couldn't even get there. I also want to point out this is an older article. It's April 1st. Things happen fast. So the article is a little old. So we already have these people already applying for unemployment. Coverage for freelance workers and those in the gig economy also are an important part of the deal and will help make sure these people get much needed support. But it will lead to unemployed benefit numbers increasing still further. Extended period of coverage for unemployed workers and increasing payments will also be a key provision protecting estimates of between 20 and 30% of the labor force that is going to be unemployed. This is what we're all waiting for. Unemployment numbers already ticked up. It's the first Friday of the month when these things come out. And last month, the one for March just came out here in April, and unemployment obviously went up, but March wasn't the big hit, right? I mean, people also, like it's saying, weren't able to get to the unemployment office. Anyway, so we're looking at 20 to 30% employment. Some people say even higher than this. We don't know, and we won't know fully for sure, but this is what we talked about earlier in question number 1. Why is this such a problem? Because we're going to have a lot of people who are going to be unemployed. This is going to be the problem. And unemployed people don't have money. Okay, let's get back to the actual question. We identified 2 groups. So far, who is the group he's talking about? Well, he's talking about the unemployed. The unemployed are one person or one group of people who definitely should be getting the money first, because those are the people who are clearly hit. So when you're going to give a stimulus package, the key is, okay, we make sure we give it to the people that need it. Let's keep reading. So unemployed is 1. Let's keep reading. This is the interesting thing about the stimulus package. The package also attempts to prevent people from falling through the cracks by providing $1,200 to individuals earning $75,000 or less, and $2,400 to couples who are earning more or less than $150,000 a year, although it does not go far enough to ensure financial stability for most Americans. And then, okay, it was a fantasy for the Trump administration to suggest that the checks get out in 2 weeks. This brings in some other stuff. But basically, we're going back to this. Who are they trying? And I'll put you on mute here. I unmuted you. Unemployed people are trying to get some benefit here. Who are the other group of people that he's trying to get money to? Not he, the government. Who?
Hospitals?
One more time.
Hospitals?
It did say hospitals. I'll add that. Hospitals in the beginning, and then the healthcare system. Anything else? Anybody else?
Small businesses.
Small businesses come later on. He hasn't mentioned that yet, but yes, he will talk about that coming up. Who's the group we just talked about in this paragraph right here?
Families?
Yep, families, and families are consumers. So consumers and households basically is what he's trying to get at here. So he's talking about, right? This is consumer spending. We're trying to keep up consumer spending partially for the economy, but partially also for households. So I'll write households right here. Now, which specific households, right? You can see by the numbers given what specific households are they trying to. Every policy is trying to pinpoint and trying to get, okay, who are we going to help, right? When we give out student loans, we're like, okay, who is going to get a student loan? Who's not eligible for a student loan? Who's eligible for unemployment? Obviously, they're not just giving the money out to everybody. They're not really doing just a helicopter drop, take it all. They're helping people, we said, who are unemployed, right? And then now they're helping people that are
making less than 150K.
Yeah, so they're trying to help people who are consumers that are not rich people, right? I mean, I wouldn't say if you make, $151,000, you're rich, but they're trying to make sure the money is not going to people who, might, for whatever reason, have some savings. It's going to people who have the least amount of savings. He continues with that. Keep reading. There's an urgency here. If families can't pay their landlords and the landlords can't pay their bills, and so further down the line, we could get a gridlock in the economy. That would be hard to start up in the future. I've seen this in other crises, and we don't want it here. Given these problems, it was important for the legislation to include provisions for like other countries have introduced. Now, if you didn't know about this, you can't see this. There's some interesting things about this where it says that there is protections against evictions and foreclosures on homes with federal mortgages. So if for some reason you can't pay your mortgage, if you're a homeowner, which we'll add to our list, homeowners. I know we only needed 2 of them, but these are some of the people who are benefiting. Unemployed people who are employed. We talked about some money for hospitals, consumers, households, and then homeowners. My handwriting is horrible. Like I said, I have doctor handwriting, except I'm not that rich. Okay, back to this. It says it also gives you a stay on interest payments on federal student loan debt. The reason why these are federal mortgages and federal student loan debt is because clearly, obviously, that's the easiest one for the federal government to do. They say, okay, you don't owe us the money right now. You're going to pay us back later on. We'll give you a couple months off or a year off of your student loan debt. And that's good because, again, consumers have more money, and those are probably younger consumers, right? The only downside of doing it with people with student debt, if you think about that a little bit, is student debt is usually people who have gone to college, and those people, in theory, would be making more income than people who didn't go to college. But anyways, keep going. But the legislation didn't go far enough. This is, again, more of opinion here. He's saying it didn't go far enough. It should have included a stay on all evictions and mortgage foreclosures, credit cards, and car repossessions. These are all things he thinks that should have been added, which were not added. And the stay on credit cards is especially important given the high interest rates charged by credit card companies. Without it, many families will find themselves in unmanageable debt. So basically, he's trying to say that people are going to start turning their credit cards, which is true in a time of crisis. And if credit card companies can make a boatload of money off the interest, then that's not particularly going to help the overall economy, as opposed to just businesses. All right, so this is more. All right, we got that. Will it help? How will this help the economy? Obviously, consumer spending is going to go up, which is going to cause GDP to go up. That's what you could write for that second part of this question. Let's move to number 5. I'm going back to you, the people who are in Zoom with me. Help me out on this one. As a college student, do you think that this legislation will help you directly? Why or why not? What do you think? Do I have you unmuted? I think I might have you. So again, I'll ask the question again. As a college student, do you think this legislation is going to help you directly? In other words, do you think you're going to get any of that money or any of that help?
If you file
I don't think
taxes.
so.
So I heard if you file taxes, right? So anybody else?
I say no because most college students are not filing for unemployment benefit.
Possibly because they're full-time students. Yeah, good point. So so the answer is more kind of opinion. It depends on the situation. Probably the answer is no, for 2 reasons. One is that you're 19 years old, and when you're 19 years old, you're usually a dependent of your parents. If you're a college student, in most cases, people are dependents up till they're 24, and that's what the government allows. And so you're not going to get that $1,200 check unless you've been filing taxes and you're not a dependent of your parents. So that would be number 1. So you're probably not going to get that check. And number 2, what about that student loan debt? We said that they're going to be benefited, right? Why maybe not a 19-year-old though? Anybody? Well, a 19-year-old hasn't graduated yet. Student loans, in most cases, at least the federal ones, they're not due until after you graduate or you leave college. So this is actually important here. If they're going to say, okay, you don't have to pay us back the loan for a federal debt or a federal student loan, you're not in that situation yet because you haven't graduated. So it's probably not going to directly help you. This one is more of an opinion question. So I'll leave it blank for now. What I wrote is exactly what I just told you a few seconds ago, was this idea here. I put right here, answers will vary. Probably not. 19-year-olds usually are dependents, so they won't receive that $1,200 check. And you don't have student debt. It's usually not due until you graduate. All right, number 6. The Great Recession in 2008. Oh, this is important because this is not something you'd see in a textbook. This is more like, do you understand the bigger concept here? Which is kind of the reason why we do these case studies. The Great Recession of 2008 was caused by a top-down financial crisis. Why might the COVID-19 pandemic be caused by a bottom-up financial crisis? Now, he actually does jump into this, and he does use those terms right here in this paragraph. But before we actually look at it, let's take a guess on what that means by top-down and bottom-up. Why would this be considered a bottom-up financial crisis?
If people aren't working, they're not going to be able to pay their mortgages.
Okay, and then?
Paying their mortgages, banks don't have money to sell off.
Perfect. And so you're exactly right? What's going on here is people are being affected. Those people aren't paying off their mortgages. The banks don't get money for the mortgages, and the banks don't have money to either make loans or even stay afloat, and they go insolvent. And that's the exact opposite of what happened before. Last time it was reversed. Last time it was all these bad loans and toxic assets, and the banks were struggling, and the banks not being able to give out loans, went the other direction. Then they weren't able to give out mortgages, and people were affected because they couldn't maybe go buy a house, or interest rates. All that stuff was more top down in 2008. In fact, let's go read what Stiglitz says here. Take a look at this. He says, I'm going to keep reading actually from here, so if you can see it. Okay. In addition to helping individuals, we must also sustain the economy and its financial system. Normally, monetary and fiscal policy, while helpful, won't suffice because both supply and demand have been deeply perturbed. In 2008, monetary policy may have prevented the collapse of the banking system, but it didn't lead to a quick resuscitation of the economy. So too here. All right, here we go. In 2008, the credit crunch came from the top down, from the bad behavior of the banks. Here, it's from the bottom up, because when people's income sources dry up, they won't be able to pay their bills, which cascading effect caused throughout the economy. There it is. People won't be able to pay their bills because they're stuck at home. They can't get out there. The businesses have been shut down. And so this is a bottom up. So, like I said, there's nothing good about this. There's nothing good about this. But the only thing that's interesting that's kind of good is for the study of economics to have one more example of a recession. No one saw this coming, and we haven't seen this sort of thing. And so this is something we're adding to our textbooks as, okay, instead of the banks being a problem, there's a completely other reason here. And hopefully that means we'll be better about addressing this in the future. Not just the medical side, like, how are we going to come up with vaccines faster? How are we going to recognize when there's a potential pandemic faster? All that stuff we're learning from the medical side, but from the economic side, we're doing the same thing. Okay, how can we respond faster? How do we recognize what's going to happen and what its effect is? All right, so for this, we need more bottom-up response than in 2008, and that's exactly what they're doing. The $1,200 checks will be vital. Small businesses will also need a variety of benefits that are included in legislation, including deferrals on certain tax payments and repayments, grants, and low-interest loans. So basically, he's trying to say we're going to help out businesses, and we're going to make sure consumers have some money, and those are all bottom-up responses, okay? So for this one, basically what I did for my answer is basically copy this quote right here, is right there. People won't be able to pay their bills, causing a cascading effect throughout the economy. They can't pay their bills. That means the owners of those assets won't make any money. The banks won't make any money, and then those banks might shut down, and the whole economy is done. All right, I'm going to move on. Number 7, according to Stiglitz, what groups should not get financial support, and do you agree or disagree? All right, I'm taking out this pen. This paragraph here is the one that brings in the most of his views, and I'm not going to really start debating with you or even show you what my views are. I just want you to be recognizing them. This whole section here really talks a lot about, basically his view on, and his political views to some extent. Here we go. And then there's the bailouts, right? Giving money to companies that squandered the opportunity to put money aside for a rainy day because they opted for massive buybacks is not the way, right? So not the way is basically saying, listen, you can't give money to all companies just because, they're well connected to politicians, especially if they squander the money. And then he keeps going, that's old-fashioned trickle-down economics. Okay, which has never worked. That right there, which has never worked. Again, these are opinion. But he's talking about this idea of giving money to businesses doesn't work. He continues with that. We need to distinguish between bailing out companies and bailing out the shareholders and bondholders. I have argued that loans should be taken in the form of conventional bonds with warrants so that taxpayers get adequate compensation for the risks they bear, and the interest should be linked to past behavior. Basically, he's trying to say, we should add some strings attached whenever we give a bailout so companies can't turn around, take that money, and give it to its stockholders, and then basically money going from the government to the business to the stockholders. Not what it's supposed to do. Government gives the money to a company so the company stays afloat for its workers so they can keep working. He continues, if they put themselves in a position to buy back shares and if they're a tax avoider. So basically he's saying two problems. They buy back shares of stock or if they're avoiding taxes. And there should be conditions on the money based on employment, governance, and treatment of labor and the environment. So there you go. This whole section here, a little bit more one-sided, but that's okay. The Democrats succeeded in putting in restrictions on this behavior most likely to outrage citizens. Taxpayer money being used to pay executive exorbitant salaries or buy back shares. They have also prevented companies from taking the money and laying off workers. Again, so this is kind of saying, okay, our goal should be helping the workers, not helping the businesses themselves. What is most lacking in this package is an adequate sense of prioritization. We've forgotten the first lesson of economics. Because resources are scarce, we need to prioritize. Aha! Key to economics. Should we be rescuing luxury hotels when our states may not be able to maintain essential services, when our universities are hard hit by losses in endowments and threatened by declining enrollments from foreign students may have to cut back, including grants they give to poor students? So he's basically saying, like, okay, when we give out bailouts and when we help out institutions, let's make sure we're helping out the right institutions. And why he gets political and says, just because a sector is able to be and willing for more lobbyists or make large campaign contributions does not mean it's deserving assistance. And so basically he's saying, okay, maybe this is not the best way, to help the economy. All right, so I'm going to answer these questions. Let's go back to these questions here. I'm going to speed up a little bit here. So the two groups he thinks shouldn't get financial help is businesses that pay stockholders. And basically, that's just the idea of businesses buy back their stock. This is public corporations buy back their stock, and then to make their stock look good, so more people want to buy it, and that doesn't and increase the price of stock. So that's one thing he says. He's also saying, absorbent salaries. People who have absorbent salaries shouldn't be able to get this. And maybe what else? You want to add to this list? What else does he say?
Non-essential services.
Non-essential services. Yeah. So luxury hotels might not be the best priority for this one. I'm going to skip over that. Here we go. This article mentions monetary policy and fiscal policy. What is the difference? I'll let one of you guys answer that super quick. What's the difference between monetary policy and fiscal policy? New question. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Actions of Congress?
Yeah, that's why I want to focus on who is doing it. So fiscal policy is done by, the government, the Congress, and the president. And what are the two parts of fiscal policy?
Taxes and spending.
Taxes and spending. And then monetary policy is done by?
Federal Reserve.
There you go, the Federal Reserve, the central bank, and that's affecting interest rates. Again, I have the answers for you that I put here. I'm going to move on to 9 and 10, though. CARES is projected to cost $2 trillion. What is the potential downsides of this policy? What do you think?
Well, you're going to have to pay the interest on that debt, so you're going to have less potential for economic growth.
In the future.
And also less discretionary spending in the future.
Sounds like a true economics teacher right there. That's true. So we're going to have, the problem is debt. This is deficit spending, and so that's going to increase the national debt. Is it worth it? That becomes a opinion question. We'll find out. We'll look back at this and say, okay, was it worth it? Was it not worth it? And that's one of the downsides of economics. You don't know, right? It's kind of like, healthcare, right? You try a new procedure on a patient. It worked. They're alive. Yay! It was worth it. Oh, they died. Oh, crud! It wasn't worth it. It wasn't the right thing we should have done. Or they could have healed faster. Anyway, so debt is the big problem. Last one. Tommy thinks the economy will rebound quickly once people are allowed to go back to work and go to school. Do you agree or disagree? So the question is, how fast will the economy rebound? Again, this is totally up to you and your opinion. I'm not going to, open it up on, my views, but I'm going to leave this and move on to the second case study. But this right here is the big question. If you know for a fact, which nobody does, if the economy is going to rebound quickly, that would help you make a whole lot of money right now. If you could really figure out and really understand and could back it up on, it's going to be a fast recovery or a slow recovery, buying stocks right now, and using that information would make you a lot of money. The problem is no one knows. We're in that situation. We really don't know because we're kind of in a new scenario. I will open up just for a second. Anybody want to say that they think it's going to rebound quickly? No? Anybody think it's going to take years? You think 5 years out? What do you think?
It's going to be different for different different sectors of the economy, we have such a vastly different countries, we have different geographic areas and industries and all that kind of
For
stuff.
sure. Yeah, no, it's gonna take years for some sectors, no doubt about it. Hospital. I mean, we talked about luxury hotels. Maybe that might come back quick if people are allowed to travel again. Boom, people go back to hotels, right? In theory, but it depends on what kind of hotels, right? Maybe because you didn't have money in the, you normally stay at really nice hotels, but because of the pandemic, you made less money during this period of time, so maybe you don't stay in the really nice hotels. So you're right, it totally depends on each individual sector. So that's a great answer to that. All right, thank you so much for the people who joined me for the Zoom. I'm gonna switch over. Thank you, I appreciate it. You guys are awesome. I'm gonna take off. It was nice seeing you. Okay, I'm heading out. Thank you so much. I'm gonna keep going though. There is a second case study that's super important that's talking about unemployment. Hopefully this is valuable to you. Hopefully you recognize that the way you understand economics, like truly understand it, is not just the textbook and the graphing. Like, we didn't draw a recessionary gap like you might do in a college class or an AP class here. We didn't do all those little calculations like the spending multiplier. And if, by the way, you don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay. That's all the academic-y kind of things that you need to be able to do to pass like college tests and AP tests. This, however, you need to understand for your life, understanding what is the government doing, right? What is that? Is it going to help? These are all things that are going to affect you directly. My favorite question is right here. As a college student, do you think you're going to be helped directly by this? Yes. We said maybe no, you're not going to be helped directly, but you might be helped indirectly, right? So as a college student, if you're 19 years old, the good news is you're not 23 about to graduate, right? That would be pretty scary. For people right now in college who are about to graduate, these are some tough times and some scary times. You spend all this time in college and now here you are and you're not sure if you're going to be able to get a job. Okay, speaking of not getting a job, we're going to switch gears, and this is going to go a little faster than the last one. Case study number 2, this is basically going to talk about unemployment. I wrote this before the coronavirus. So I made this a long time ago, like a couple months ago. And so basically it's not going to fit like the world today. Unemployment's going to be a lot different than these numbers. But I want you to understand some stuff about unemployment so you understand that not everybody who doesn't have a job is considered unemployed. And how does that even work? So here we go. Case study number 2. Your Aunt Sheila has been a high school teacher for 10 years and she recently found out that she's pregnant. Yay, congratulations! She's expecting. Her and her husband, Barry, are not sure if she will go back to teaching after she takes her maternity leave or stay at home with the baby. She needs to tell her principal soon, but wonders if she is eligible for unemployment benefits. Sheila hears that you're taking economics class and she wants you to help answer some of her questions. To help her, you go to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics frequently asked questions, which we can open up that site right now. You can go ahead and click on this if you want to. This will get you straight to that site. And then she's going to ask you some questions. All of these questions that are asked are her questions to you. And believe it or not, this is going to happen. If you're studying economics, people ask you questions all the time. Oh, you're in economics class. Oh, I got a question for you really quick. So let's see if you actually know enough about economics and about unemployment to answer these questions from Sheila. All right, question number 1. Am I considered unemployed during the summer when students aren't in school? Why or why not? Oh, that's a good question, right? So teachers, if they have traditional schedules, they have 2 months off during the summertime. Are they considered unemployed? Well, so by the way, since no one is here with me on Zoom, you go ahead and answer it out loud to the screen. So are they considered unemployed? What do you think? The answer is no, they are not. No, and the reason why, if you actually get on the website and look at the frequently asked questions, people like over the weekend are not considered unemployed. Unemployed people have to be looking for work. So no, have a job. All right, you have a job and are not looking. Those 2 conditions are actually pretty important. It's not just people who are looking for a job. If you have a job and you're looking for a job, you're not considered unemployed because you already have one. But so if you have a job and you're not looking, then you're not considered unemployed. So in fact, I'll show you the answers I wrote. You're not considered unemployed. You're just on vacation. The Bureau of Labor Statistics considers vacations the same as weekends. You have a job and you're on a break. All right. So that would be the right answer. You're not unemployed. During maternity leave, will I be considered unemployed? Why or why not? Ooh, that's not a good question, right? Can you apply for unemployment benefits while you're on maternity leave? The answer is no. This is the same exact idea. It says right here, you are considered employed, you have a job, and are counted as with a job but not at work. So the answer is no, you have a job. Number 3, if I decide to stay home with the baby and not go back to work after my maternity leave, will I be considered unemployed? All right, she keeps asking you these questions, right? How about if she decides not to come to work? She goes, you know what? I like having a baby. I'm going to stay at home for maybe a year or two. I'm just not going to go back to work. Considered unemployed? What do you think? Yes, no? The answer is no. No, not in the labor force. Now, you wouldn't just say not in labor force. You'd say to, Aunt Sheila, I want you to know that no, that you would not be considered unemployed because you're no longer in the labor force, because you're not looking for work. So right here, no, you will not be considered unemployed because you willingly left the workforce and are not actively seeking employment. You are not in the labor force. That was the answer to 3. Number 4. All right, she continues to ask you, my friend Janet went back to work after she had a baby. She wanted a full-time job, but she could only get a part-time job as a substitute teacher. Is Cindy considered unemployed? Why or why not? All right, now we're talking. Now we're asking some good questions. So Cindy wants a better job. She wants a full-time job, but she only has a part-time job. Is she considered unemployed? The answer is no. She's not unemployed. She has a job. She has a job. So again, for the answer right here, no, she's not considered unemployed. Part-time employees are not considered unemployed. She has a job and is considered underemployed. That term is actually important, underemployed. And this is important for the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They break down who, not everyone's the same. So maybe some people are part-time workers and, they want more hours. And so they're underemployed. They don't have the job they want, but we're not going to consider them unemployed. They're definitely in the labor force. And so they actually make adjustments. And so there's actually several unemployment numbers. If you get on the website, there's the one that the news reports. This is the national employment, but they break it down by race. They break it down by age. They break it down by underemployed workers, discouraged workers. There's a lot of things they break down those statistics with. 5, suppose instead that the school eliminates my position and I look for jobs at other high schools. Would I be considered unemployed? Why or why not? Yes. Finally, in this situation, because the school eliminated the position, yes, you'd be unemployed. You would be unemployed. And the question is why or why not? Well, what type of unemployment? If you've learned that in your class, there's 3 types: frictional, structural, cyclical. If they eliminated the position, well, I guess it depends on why they eliminated the position, if it was because of budget cuts. But yeah, you're if they eliminated your position, we can maybe assume because it was budget cuts. For this one, what I wrote for number 5, yes, I'm experiencing frictional employment. All right, well, this is why I wrote frictional, because I'm looking for a job in the same field and not necessarily to acquire new skills or training. So for this one, I wrote you're frictionally unemployed. And it makes sense. We don't have enough information to determine why. If it was because of budget cuts and a poor economy, then that would be considered cyclical. You get the idea, though. When he was younger, your Uncle Barry worked at a restaurant, and he was fired for coming in late too many times. Was he eligible for unemployment benefits? Okay, so your cousin Barry apparently has some issues that he's trying to work out. But this is a while ago. He was a kid, and when he was younger, and he was fired, considered unemployed. Can he get unemployment benefits? The answer is no. You can't. If you are fired or for misconduct, you can't go to the government and say, hey, can I get money for that? So technically, when you're fired, you're not eligible for unemployment benefits. So you'd write that out. I'm going to skip it for now. In answer here, I put, yes, he is considered unemployed. No, here. No, he was fired for misconduct. Then he is not eligible for unemployment benefits. Let's move on. A year ago, Barry started working at a bank as a bank teller, but he recently lost his job when the bank switched to automated machines. Is he considered unemployed? So Barry started working for a bank teller, but he just lost his job. The answer is yes, he's considered unemployed. And the reason why he is structural unemployment. Now, maybe your teacher, depending on what class you're in, isn't using these terms. You just understand the idea, though. There's 3 types of unemployment: being between jobs, frictional. There's structural unemployment, when machines do it better, that's this situation, or when, people don't need your skills anymore. Like VCR repairman is the example for that one. And the last one is cyclical unemployment, when the economy is doing poorly and people lose their job because the whole economy is going down, right? So there you go for that one. 8, if Barry can't find a job and eventually quits looking for a job, will he be considered unemployed? No, he will be a discouraged worker. He is a discouraged worker, which basically means you gave up and you're not in labor force. Again, these aren't the best answers in the world, the way I'm writing them up. I'm just in a hurry here. So understand, though, you have to be actively looking for a job to be considered unemployed. All right, 9. This is the one that doesn't really fit because, things have changed. But the news stated that the national unemployment rate is less than 4%, but the youth unemployment rate is over 10%, which is true. At least, this discrepancy or this disparity between the numbers is totally true and real. So if unemployment is 4, but the youth unemployment, I think it's 16 to 18-year-olds, is a lot higher, more than double. Why do you think there's such high unemployment among teenagers? This becomes more of an opinion, but why is it that teenagers don't have, as high as unemployment or as much employment? You can come up with all sorts of reasons for this that would make sense, and you'd probably be 100% right. Lack of skills, you might be one. The ones I wrote here, lack of qualifications. They don't have transportation. They're working under the table, and being too lazy to get a job is not an answer. The one thing I want to get idea here is if you wrote, well, teenagers are lazy, they don't get jobs. Well, if they're not getting jobs, then they're not part of labor force. We're talking about people who are teenagers actively looking for work. It takes longer. They have less connections. There's be all sorts of reasons on why it might be the case. Number 10, just curious. Are you employed, unemployed, or not part of the labor force? So your actual situation, like right now. Do you have a job? Are you part of the labor force? Are you actually looking for a job? For me, I'm employed. So to answer the question based on me, if this was my Aunt Sheila, I'm employed. I'm self-employed, and I have my own business, but I'm considered employed. If they called me and asked me the questions that the Bureau of Labor Statistics asked, I'd say, yeah, I'm fully employed. I have a job. We're all good. So I'm not actively looking for work. All right. This hopefully helped you understand the idea of unemployment. I mean, obviously you know the definitions for your textbook, but maybe you might not know these details. I didn't really go to the website, but if you do, take a look at this website. It's kind of interesting. It answers more questions about how they find the unemployment rate, what it is, the little detailed questions you might be like, oh, I wonder about this. All that is on there in the frequently asked questions on the Bureau of Labor Statistics website. That's the agency that does all those statistics for the United States. Anyways, between these two things, we kind of covered a lot of macroeconomics concepts. Concepts weren't covered. I didn't really jump into inflation. That's a key concept you need to understand. You should know, how inflation affects you. That's the biggest reason why I tell my students why they want to learn macroeconomics is to understand inflation. If nothing else, and I mean this, if you learn nothing else in your econ class, but you understand the idea of inflation and why it matters to you, that you've won because you can make a lot of money. The idea here, so just so we're on the same page, because so I can cover a little bit of it, if let's say the inflation rate, and it's not right now, but let's just say inflation is like 5%. And you're keeping track of it because you want to learn about economics, and throughout your whole life, you're keeping track. And inflation is 5%. Your boss comes to you and says, "Oh, well, you're older and you have a salary position." They say, "We're going to give you a 3% raise, right? This year, and there's 5% inflation." You're going to sit in that meeting and be like, "You know what? Actually, sorry, ma'am, I prefer a 5% raise at the very least, because in this case, my real wage would be negative 2% real wage increase." And the reason why is if I get a 3% raise, but inflation is eroding that raise, then really the amount of money they're paying me is 2% less in terms of purchasing power than what I was paid before. So if nothing else, if you learn nothing else in macroeconomics, at least understand why inflation is super important. And then of course, after that, if you understand inflation, you should understand interest rates, because that's going to save you a lot of money too. Understanding what interest rates are, understanding, loans, and understanding, all that stuff. Not even talking about the personal finance side of economics. I'm just talking about like, do you understand it? Are interest rates going to be going up in the future or down in the future? Those are all important concepts that will honestly save you tens of thousands of dollars throughout your life if you understand them and you're thinking about this stuff like an economist thinks. Anyways, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you found this valuable. Do me a favor right now. Please subscribe. Also, leave a comment in the comment section and let me know how else I can help you learn and love economics. It is my pleasure to work with you. I wish this was a better situation and we weren't all at home and the economy was doing better. And like I said before in the beginning, I hope that you and your family are healthy and that you guys are doing okay financially and economically. And I hope everything else is doing well. Thanks so much for watching these videos. It means the world to me that you joined me and jumped on here, that you watch my videos and get the ultimate review packet and support my channel. Teachers, like I said, email me if you have any questions about how to use this stuff with your students. Thanks so much for watching. You know exactly what I'm going to tell you right now, don't you? I'm going to say thanks for watching. Until next time.